Next on MLR Weekly, USA Rugby Men's Sevens coach Mike Friday, John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News, the Rugby Network Play of the Week, Picks of the Week from the Rugby Odds, and the best darn recap in Major League Rugby history. Rugby Wrap-Ups MLR Weekly brought to you by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, New York City, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. Presented by Rugby Wrap-Up, Matt McCarthy in New York City. Thank you for joining us. It's much appreciated. We have a great show. Waiting in the wings, USA Sevens head coach Mike Friday, Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News, and John Fitzpatrick with his Rugby Mornings coffee break. But before we get to any of them, we have the best darn recap in Major League Rugby. Let's get to it. At Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, Miami and LA clashed in the up and down derby. The highs and lows for both teams have been aplenty, and the Sharks started swimmingly behind pretty and pink Scotsman Nick Grigg and held a 10-3 advantage into the 36th minute. That's when Max Kashieko broke one and fed a beauty of a pass to Tasman Smith, and LA was off and running. Mad Max would have another bruising run in the 70th minute to finish off a spectacular team try. LA scored 6 tries in all, and the underrated Jason Emery was perfect from the tee, helping to shoo the Sharks away with a devastating defeat. Final score, 45-15 RFCLA. Within spitting distance of Boston, Dallas and New England had their latest battle in this budding interconference rivalry. Mr. Invisible to defenses, Jason Patros, got the Free Jackals of Free Jacks on the board first, but the Dallas Jackals poached the ball and the lead and went into halftime up 10-7 despite the record Bostonian crowd hurling cringe-worthy expletives their way. But the FJs scored the first 19 points of the second half and held on as the Jackals had Woodgie running for his, her, its life. Dallas did get a key bonus point in the loss, though, keeping them in the playoff hunt. Final score, 26-24, Flapjackals, Free Jacks. In Harriman's, Utah, Zions Bank Stadium, a banged-up Warriors side were looking to cash in a second win versus rival San Diego. And if Matt Giteau's opening kick was any indication, the Legion were in for a long day. However, the injury gods knocked Utah's human battering ram Paul Lasike out in the warm-ups, yet Zion, the banker, got the Warriors going and off to a 10-zip lead. That's when the aforementioned 40-year-old Giteau froze Father Time and burst into the opening, setting up a great San Diego try. But the home team blew a 2013 lead with just over 5 minutes left as the Legion scored 2 tries, the last coming at death to stun Warriors Nation 27-20. To the gold mine on-air line, Major League Rugby's best team, Houston, were up against the scalding hot Gold. But after game-changer Teofilo Ed Fido turned an ankle in the opening moments, the SaberCats pounced on Andre Warner's blocked Boza kick for a Warner try. And then Ronan Murphy followed that with a run up the gut versus a tags playing NOLA defense. Indeed, Gold fans were heard muttering, "Houston, we have a problem." Final score, 21-7 Cats. In Germantown, Maryland, patriots everywhere were watching Old Glory unfurl for the anthem. And after the flag and song were finished, DC and Carolina went at it on the rugby pitch. Fans were treated to a score fest, 12 of them, 7 by the home team and 3, get this, by Scottish prop Stephen Longwell. That's rarer than a Scotsman buying around. Old Glory gets the bonus point win and keeps pace with Chicago for 3rd place in the East. Final score, 47-29, District of Columbians. And we need a break. But we're going to take a coffee break. That's right, Rugby Mornings coffee break with John Fitzpatrick out of Washington, D.C., the District of Columbians. John, welcome back to MLR Weekly. How are you, and what do you got?
Matt, I'm doing great. I'll tell you what, Week 14 MLR saw a little bit of everything. We had big injuries. We had props scoring hat tricks. We had a team eliminated from the playoffs. We had a team earn a spot into the playoffs. The SaberCats won their 6th straight game. They beat NOLA Gold, first team to qualify for the postseason. But Matt, New Orleans, you got to be a little bit worried there. Your boy Teofilo Fito injured his ankle on the opening kickoff. It did not look good. They had to kind of carry him off the field. NOLA was rolling, and now the brakes are on. Matt, are you concerned?
Yeah, I am, because, he's one of the league's superstars, obviously, and he's a game changer, both offensively and defensively. You don't see a lot of him, other than when he's scoring tries, but he's doing a lot of the dirty work playing defense, specifically when an opposing team is threatening to score and they're close to that goal line or that try line, and he is an animal on defense as well. And that's a big miss. Looked like a tender ankle. Maybe get him back in two weeks or so. Stay alive for the playoffs. That's a key thing to watch. Next.
Hey, let's move on up to New England, where the Free Jacks set a new home attendance record. 4,821 fans. Well, the Free Jacks beat the Dallas Jackals. Matt, almost 5,000 fans at an MLR match. That is pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, that is great stuff. That's great news, and we need to get that across the league. Free Jacks in Seattle setting the tone in that department. But, the Free Jacks, no wins are coming easy, right? But they're getting the job done, and it's a lot like San Diego. The two teams that were in the finals, neither team really scares you to death now when you're looking at them, but they do win the games that they need to win. Next.
Yeah, well, New England definitely has some reinforcements that just brought in Ethan Fryer. He had a try intercept. Jed Melvin, a Kiwi boy down there, who's a pretty stud flanker. They're going to be taking on Old Glory DC. And Old Glory DC, they dropped a bonus point win on Anthem in Week 14. Stephen Longwell became the first prop in MLR history to score a try. That's 3 tries. Matt, you've never scored 3 tries in your rugby career. But
actually, I'm co-holder of the New York Rugby Club try-scoring record for 4 tries and a half. Thank you. 4 tries and a half. Thank you. The first half. Thank you. Next.
Well, that loss by Anthem eliminated them from postseason contention. But, Matt, there are 2 other teams that are still hanging around, both in the Eastern and Western Conference. How about RFC LA? They dropped 45 on Miami. They're tied with Utah with 27 points. They're sticking around. In Miami, they're not out of it yet. They are 9 points back of Old Glory DC in the Eastern Conference. But, Matt, we're starting to get to the business end of the regular season. All these games really count.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's an up and down, topsy-turvy, wacky, crazy world we live in here in the MLR. And LA laying it on Miami. Miami coming off that emotional victory versus New England. And then they go and they lose to LA. And LA, to be fair, has been really banged up for the majority of the season, missing key components. But when they're healthy or healthy-ish, they've got some decent players on that side. I mean, Rugby ATL was the nexus of their existence, and they're okay. I mean, that was a good, solid kind of core. And when they're on the field at the same time, they can beat some teams, and they might play the spoilers for a lot of people. But Miami, what a critical, crucial loss.
Yeah, almost inexplicable there for Miami, but 4 weeks left in the regular season. But Matt, we got to do a quick shout out here. How about USA Men's Sevens? It took until that little qualification series, but they did secure their spot for the circuit next year. Former MLR flanker from Utah Warriors, Lance Williams, did get in and saw some action, but a little nervy. They had to take it to the qualification series, but they did secure their spot on the 2025 circuit.
Yeah, how ticked off are Warriors fans not having Lance Williams on that Warriors lineup, but at the same time, the guy's chasing Olympic gold. And I know that you peeked into the green room and saw Mike Friday waiting in the wings. So anything else before we bring in Coach Friday?
That is it, Matt. I'm excited for Week 15 in MLR.
All right, and I'm excited that you're excited, and we're all excited together. On that note, let's take a quick break and come back with Mr. Mike Friday, coach of USA Men's Sevens team, after this.
Digs like a demented mole there.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now. And we are back, and we have one of our best all-time guests coming back, Mr. Mike Friday, the head coach of Team USA's Sevens program. Mike, welcome to MLR Weekly.
Yeah, great to be back. I mean, it's I'm a little bit fatigued. It's been a busy week, but yeah, always good to get back on. Always good to see your lovely smile.
You and your staff and team have survived rugby purgatory. You just avoided being relegated, or specifically kicked off the Sevens circuit for next year.
Yeah.
And I just got to ask you, how relieved are you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I'm super proud of the boys with what they've had to deal with, and this kind of goes back 18 months really when we unwind it, when you actually have a proper look at all of this symptom and causes. But yeah, I mean, the situation we found ourselves in was not of our making, but long and the short of it is, and don't get me wrong. People will point at the Perry should have just scored the try in Singapore against Team GB. And, yes, he should have. But this is the same Perry Baker that has won countless games for Team USA and us. And, it wasn't down to that moment. That was just an unfortunate moment. What we need to look at in terms of how we ended up in this ridiculous situation is just...
Well, let me stop you there, because I want people to understand this.
Yeah.
Explain how the circuit was tweaked for this season as opposed to previous years.
Yeah, so in previous years, you were always able to play out for your position in the series, right? And we used to have 16 teams, and they took us down to 12 anyway. So the competition in the men's side was unforgiving at 16 teams. It's now ruthless at 12.
Right.
So every point matters and earning every place. But the tweak that they did this year was that you played your pools, and then from that you had quarterfinals. And if you weren't in the top 8 for the quarterfinals, you play out for 9th to 12th. So you play out for your placing. If you won your quarterfinal, you played out for your placing 1 to 4. If you lost your quarterfinal, you didn't get to play out for 5th to 8th. You got put in to a seeded game dependent on your points difference. So it didn't even matter if you topped your group and you had more points from the pool stages. It just went on points difference. So
crazy.
And the reality is, in terms of our consistency of season, we made 6 out of 7 quarterfinals. And that the only team that did more than us was Ireland. That kind of showed our consistency of quarterfinals. And the one quarterfinal we didn't make was at the start of the season, when we had to rest our 4 or 5 senior boys who'd been going solid for 5 years, or 4 years, sorry, since Tokyo, because of the debacle of the RAN qualifier, where our RAN representative agreed to put it in August when it could have been alongside the other qualifiers for the Olympics in June or September, October, which would have given our players suitable rest and recovery, and they would have been ready to go at the start of the season. So,
and explain what RAN is.
The RAN was the Olympic qualifier, right? After last year, right? And most of the Olympic qualifiers, regional qualifiers, were strategically placed in June or September or October to ensure that all the players that have been going solid a 3-year rest, for 3.5 years, a proper 12-week rest. So, we had that. And then on top of that, we then had to swallow the fact that meant 33% of the teams in this World Series. There's not a league in the world, in a sport in the world, where 33% of the teams are put at risk in relegation.
Right.
And then the format, which was you played 3 pool games to dictate your ranking, which means absolutely nothing. Then it comes off to a one-off game on the Sunday. And And
because this is the frustration as a fan too. I mean, I would, with the time differences, I'm in New York, you guys are playing overseas. You'd have a great first day.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and you're playing for 7th or 8th place. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like, as you say, it's the way the system or the tournament was tweaked.
Ridiculous amount of jeopardy. And all we were performing monkeys at the circus for a one-off game where winner takes all, when reality is, with all due respect to Canada, they've lost 30 games in a row and they nearly got out of it at the end of that last game against Spain. And that doesn't feel right either.
Right.
So I think there's lots
of France winning?
Well, again, it's an interesting one. It was an amazing win by France, but I'll ask you a question. Who do you think are the World Series champions? Would you say it's France or would you say it's Argentina?
I would say it's Argentina.
You would, and you would probably say on the other side, who are the World Series winners on the women's? Is it New Zealand or is it Australia?
I would also say that it's a farce to have Antoine Dupont as the Rookie of the Year on the World Series.
Yeah, I think Antoine Dupont was as embarrassed as anybody else about that.
I think so too. That allows us to segue. I wanted to talk about the MLR a little bit, and I wanted to see if you saw synergy there, because now Scott Lawrence is heading Team USA's men's 15s program. He's also basically calling the shots at Anthem, Carolina, which is the MLR team down in Charlotte, to develop USA players. Are you scouting the MLR, and do you want your players? Do you think that it's a benefit, or it works against them to maybe play 15s for the Anthem or something like that?
I think we have to be very clear and very, very, very clear. There are very few players in the world that can seamlessly move from 15s to 7s. Antoine Dupont is one, Hugo Keenan is another, and probably Damien Penaud is another one. But all three are unbelievably physically fit athletes. They are the best of the best in terms of fitness scores for their respective countries. So that's a non-negotiable for a 15s player if they want to come to the 7s arena, because the conditioning is so much different. So I think when I look at the MLR with where they are, I think what Scott is trying to do is develop American talent and get them more game time and them more minutes. I think the ability to transfer between the two in season for our players with the EQ levels that they are, I think is not viable. The under 23s, there's got to be more cohesion, more collaboration, more experiences and exposures for these young players in both the 7s arena and the 15s, so they can find their way, because ultimately it's the player's choice. It's not Mike Friday, head coach of 7s choice, or Scott Lawrence, head coach of 15s. It's the player's choice, and we should support them because ultimately they're representing their country. We can still pinnacle event with these players, but there are very few that will be able to go between the two. Let's talk the Olympics. Yeah. What are your expectations now after you've survived? What are your expectations of? So I think what we've shown this year is we're capable of beating anybody. And I think everybody is wary of us. I think the challenge that we have is we've got to bring a consistency to our game, because a bit like the other teams, you as supporters don't really know which USA team's going to turn up game to game. Is it going to be the guys that can tear someone apart, or is it going to be the guys that are going to have those moments where you're just sitting there with your head in your hands? And, we've got to flatten out those moments and make sure we win those moments at the important time. But 100%, I'm looking at the groups. It's looking... If it goes to form in the Monaco, I think our group looks like we'll have Fiji, France, us and Uruguay. So then it's about plotting your way into the quarterfinals, and then you try and force your way past that game into the medal matches. All right, what's life for Mike Friday after rugby? Yeah, well, for me, when I retire from the game, I'll probably be at the end of a rugby pitch. You'll be a true geezer. I'll be watching my sons, having a cup of tea, and listening to all these other people that have opinions up and down the side of the pitch and saying nothing. And that's, I look forward to that. I look forward to just being able to enjoy my two boys play, and having a quiet family quiet family life and watching them. I mean, my youngest finishes school in 2 weeks, and then he starts pre-season training for Harlequins a week later. So he's on a different journey. He's starting his journey. So guiding him, and my eldest comes back from university, and he'll probably start. Well, he's got to find a job. He's got to get a job, but he'll probably play level 3, level 4 rugby. And again,
that's great.
It'll be the circle of life, right? You know, I mean, that's the way it works.
Final question for you. Yeah. How do I get a geezer hat?
Well, you got to speak. All you got to do is you got to speak to hat tricks. So you speak to hat tricks, right? And it's run from Chula Vista, right? Because it's a couple of the boys' business.
Mike, this show is MLR Weekly.
Yeah.
Who's going to win the Shield this year?
Well, I'm going to go Chicago.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Who knew? Who knew? Mike Friday, thank you very much for coming on. Much appreciated, and wishing you nothing but the best of luck.
Cheers, pal. Lovely.
And now your Major League Rugby Play of the Week, brought to you by the Rugby Network. In the nation's capital, America's teams number 1 and number 1A, Old Glory and the Anthem, saw a Major League Rugby first in their try-scoring track meet as Stephen Longwell became the first prop to record a hat trick on this entree into the try zone. Out in Utah, San Diego's stunning comeback win was sealed by Peyton Telealio's try in the 81st minute, keeping the Legion within striking distance of second place, Seattle in the West. Up in Quincy, Massachusetts, the young Ethan Fryer, a flanker, showed instincts beyond his years and speed incongruous with his size and position to race the length of the pitch for what would prove to be the difference maker in another physical match between New England and Dallas. And the Rugby Network Play of the Week is prop Stephen Longwell's third try of the match, giving front row players everywhere something to smile about. Now for the Major League Rugby Picks of the Week, courtesy of the Rugby Odds via WWE Hall of Famer turned rugby advocate John Bradshaw Layfield, King Gifte Belu, the inventor of words, and his pugnacious proxy, Stephen Lewis, the esteemed rugby executive and coach.
Utah is so hard, schizophrenic almost, the way they play. You know, it all depends on Lasecki being healthy. It depends on their backs, but they have been hit and miss all year long. So it's hard betting against them or for them, but it's not betting on Seattle at home. Seattle at home has been a tough Starfire is a place that is really tough to go to and win. Give me Seattle at home.
Well, on behalf of Mr. Ebelu, he's taken NOLA and a five-point spread against Miami, so NOLA away. I, on the other hand, I'm going to go out there. Anthem. They've relied on 4 or 5 now, the last 10 minutes getting out of jail. I don't think the luck will hold again. I think Anthem, it's been a long, hard season. I feel they got one result in them, and I'm just not convinced about San Diego.
Hey, be sure to check out the critically acclaimed The Rugby Odds. It's a sports entertainment show that also has insightful opinions and exclusive highlights. Plus, you needn't know anything about anything to enjoy it.
I wouldn't like to be at the bottom of that.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
This is the Rugby Odds, where an unlikely pundit panel of a wordsmith, a WWE legend, a rugby star, and a supermodel scour the globe, seeking best bets and bad behavior. Are you not entertained? Fans, you can tune into every match live on Flow Rugby. How do we know that? Because we're on there all the time. And we're back, and once again, we have the pleasure of welcoming in Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Also, you can find him at Ray's Rugby on Twitter /X. Bryan, welcome back to MLR Weekly.
Pleasure is a strange word, but I'll take it, Matt. I'll take it.
All right, Brian, let's look into that America's Rugby News ARN crystal ball of yours. First up, and these spreads are, again, from our friends at the Rugby Odds. DC hosting New England. New England road favorites -6.
DC, they're going to be tough, but I think New England will step up a bit. Maybe we'll see another one of these new arrivals taking the field. So I'm going to take New England on the road to win by a couple tries.
Houston -12 at the Cats Meow trademark versus Los Angeles, coming off that big win versus Miami.
Yeah, in LA, I mean, they just ripped Miami apart in that final quarter, but they've still got so many injuries. I got to go with the Cats in this one. They're just too powerful, too deep. They'll take care of LA.
San Diego at home -16 after another squeaker against the Anthem.
I can't see Anthem, turning over San Diego at Snapdragon Stadium. San Diego hasn't been super sharp, but they're getting the wins. They're getting the results they need. So I think they'll pull
away.
How
about Quito's start of the game? Did you see the kickoff? It went 3 yards. Put a wheelchair behind him and wheel him off. And then later on in the game, he bursts up the middle, runs 35 yards or meters, and throws a great pass for a try. Spectacular run. He looked like he was 28. Miami at home versus NOLA. Both teams coming off disappointing performances. NOLA, the road favorite by 5.
I think Miami has, a team that they're chasing in the Eastern Conference. If they have any hope whatsoever of making the postseason, they have to get a bonus point win here. And the problem is, I just think NOLA's just a better team right now, So I think NOLA's going to bounce back from this one. I think they'll beat Miami, but Miami, I think, will make it tough. I mean, we'll see. We'll wait and see. We didn't see Orlando this week. Hopefully, we'll see Matias Orlando this coming week. That's the player, not the place, Orlando. But I think it'll be a good game, but I'm going to take NOLA on the road.
All right, so then you got Dallas at home, and Chicago is, again, a road favorite, -3. I'm sure the Rugby Odds folks are going to get some grief for that pick.
You know what? I like Chicago. I like Chicago on the road. I think they'll bounce back from this one. I hear they might have Lucas Rumble back in the lineup. He's been bruised up a little bit, so got to back those Canadian boys with Mason Flesh there as well. So I'll go Chicago.
And then finally, Seattle at Starfire, bringing in Western Conference rival Utah, and it's Seattle -7.
How do you pick this game? I mean, Seattle's the better team on paper. I just think they played better this year. Utah is so beaten up, and I just don't see, they're tough, but I just don't quite see the urgency maybe in their performances. And that's a tough ask for them to go there and win in Seattle right now. A relatively rested Seawolves side. So I got to take Seattle at home.
Brian, before we let you go, final thoughts.
I guess finally, hard to watch the Canadian Sevens team go down. The American Sevens, the Eagles still on the circuit is good, but I think we'll see a bunch of these Canadian talented young Canadian players turning their eyes now to MLR because they're not going to have the Sevens circuit to look at next season, which is unfortunate, but maybe that's MLR's game.
Thank you for coming on, and I also want to thank John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, Coach Mike Friday of Team USA's Men's Sevens program, and thank you for tuning in. Please check out our other shows, including the critically acclaimed and often entertaining The Rugby Odds, plus the College Rugby Wrap-Up. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Tell your friends about us, and please sign up for our weekly newsletter before you join our American Red Cross blood donor team.